Welcome to Step Up with DL Walker. At any time during our live vidcast premiere, you can ask questions of myself or our guests by typing your question in the box called Top Chat, located in the right-hand corner of your screen. If you're watching a recording and have a question, just type your questions in the comments box below, and we'll be sure to respond. At any time, check out the information box because it contains contact information and special offers from DL and our guests. That's located underneath this video. Enjoy the vidcast, and if you find this information helpful, please give it a like and share it with anyone whom you feel may benefit. Thanks so much for watching, stepping up for your health, and please do be in touch. Hans was born in the Netherlands and immigrated to the United States when he was young. Growing up in Buffalo, New York, and later moving to Oregon, he took the opportunity to study physical therapy in the Netherlands after his college years and attained a master's degree. After running a successful healthcare business in Oregon, he moved to Florida. An MBA degree in sustainability followed, with 10 years in that field. And now, a complete turn has taken Hans back to integrative healthcare. Working on a friend who had an essential tremor, traditionally treated only with medications, alternatively, using CranioSacral Therapy, a measured success in controlling the tremor was realized and improved quality of life. This awakened Hans's natural ability and connections to healthcare, inspiring the opening of his practice, For CranioSacral Therapy, serving the greater Sarasota and Bradenton areas of Florida. Hans has completed the training in CranioSacral Therapy as a specialty through the Upledger Institute in Palm Beach Gardens, Florida, the birthplace of CranioSacral Therapy. Equipped with the certificate as a Reiki Master Teacher and previous education as a physical therapist, a wide depth of experience and knowledge can be bestowed on any therapy session. His motto is, "We're here, ready to help, support, and guide you to a life in better health." So welcome, Hans. Thank you so much for being here. And the first question I'm going to ask you is, how did you journey to this point in your career?
Well, thank you for having me. It's really exciting. How I got into craniosacral therapy was a journey that started with my previous relationship, where my partner, had an essential tremor, and at the time, I was practicing physical therapy, and she was practicing as a chiropractor, so alternative healthcare, if you will, with a blend of traditional medicine. And she started to have an unexplained essential tremor. We went through the whole process of all the diagnoses, all the things to rule out, and nothing was found. I had taken a refresher course, if you will, or introductory course in craniosacral, and I said, hey, let's try this. We tried everything else, and it stopped the tremors like that. So, oh my gosh, what a amazing, beautiful evidence that this really works. Then things happened because of that. We had to shut the practice down, unfortunately, because she was the key holder to the running of that practice. I started going into the energy business, did that for about 17 years. And lo and behold, things changed, life changes. And I ended up with being in Sarasota, met another amazing woman, and we hit it off. And Vivi, and she does medical light therapy. And it was a perfect opportunity to get back to my passion, because when I saw that I could have such an incredible effect in my previous relationship on the essential tremor, I thought, oh my gosh, I need to do this for other people. And so that was always the seed of my passion. I left it for a period of time, but I'm right back at it. And now it is just booming. I'm having so much fun. My list of clients is increasing. And so obviously I'm having a really success. And I'm just absolutely loving the work.
Excellent. And you know, it's funny that you bring up an essential tremor. I went to craniosacral for a benign tremor. Well, I didn't know it was benign, but I wasn't about to go down that rabbit hole. I didn't want to know, to be very honest, because I didn't want to be given a diagnosis, because diagnosis is, you know, it can be a very powerful thing if you take ownership of it. And so I didn't want to know at the time. And so I went alternative, and one of the modalities, and when I do things, I go all in. So I change everything and I go to everyone. And one of the modalities that I chose was craniosacral therapy. And with regard to all of those interventions that I took, that tremor went away in 4 weeks.
Wow.
So I really, like I said, when I get hit, or if my body gets invaded by something, I send the entire military. So I go at it, like I said, I go at it with all the ammo that I am familiar with. And I'll give you another instance of craniosacral. I had learned it in my physical therapy training. I happened to have a professor who was a craniosacral therapist. And I did feel the energies when I was performing that modality, even just as a student. So tell me about, what is it about craniosacral? What's your understanding of how it works? Because you have a very scientific mind. So can you explain that to us a little bit?
Sometimes a little too scientific, and I go down the rabbit hole, but we'll try to stay kind of in the bigger picture of things. Well, there's sort of, I consider it a sort of a real medical model to it, a real structural model to it, where I'm looking at making the nerves function at their most optimal. Okay. What does that mean? The nerves innervate and control all the functions in our whole body. So if there are issues, oftentimes I can find that the nervous system is affected in one way or another. So how I do that is I make sure that the structure around the nerves are at their optimum. When it comes to the spine, I usually refer to a chiropractor, but when I work with the skull, I work on making sure these plates in our head are moving in that cranial sacral rhythm. Not that there's a balance, and so hence that cranial sacral fluid now can bathe those beautiful nerves and allow them to function at their most optimum. And really, that's the structural side of it. There's, of course, an energetic component to it, because any kind of restriction, or may it be caused by a trauma or so, there's that energy component in there. So like an energy ball or energy swirl, you can describe it in different ways. And so sometimes when I work on certain areas, brain, for instance, the skull, there's releases, and I can work on releasing it through the more Eastern philosophy of energy release, where you use the meridians or the energy flow through the body to release it. And that we often call that grounding the person. The funny thing is, sometimes I take on those energies, and I'm sitting there holding the person with that gentle touch, and I start yawning, and I go, wait a minute, I'm not tired. Well, the yawn is a way that the body releases energy. I just took that on, which is so crazy and wonderful, because I know things are working and things are moving. Stagnant energy can create symptomatology, can create more issues, like pathologies. But if we can keep that energy moving, even if it's stagnant, we'll keep working on it, keep nudging it, and then we finally get it to flow. So that's, in a nutshell, what I do.
It's really interesting when you brought that up, the vision that I had. So with craniosacral rhythm, I think of it, it's like a heartbeat, right?
Right.
And you have these ventricles in your brain that have the cerebral spinal fluid, which is like blood, right?
Yeah.
So you have a fluid like blood, and you have this pumping, if you will, or this movement, if you will, to circulate this nourishing fluid throughout the system. And when
Right.
that system gets jammed, it causes all sorts of problems in, in a person's energy level or in their neurological function for sure. And I believe that that's why craniosacral has typically been done with great success, I should say, with individuals who are TBIs, traumatic, which means traumatic brain injury, as you know, but for
Yeah.
those listening might not, cerebral palsy,
ADHD.
spinal cord, MS, Parkinson's, those kinds of things, because they're clearly blood flow or circulation is healing. And
Yeah.
most of our modalities will want to do that. And the second thing that really struck me is what you were saying, is that when I think of the nervous system, that's where I think of an energetic energy within the physiological systems of our body. That one to me is the most energetic, if you will, when you think of the major systems. And so isn't it appropriate to treat energy with energy?
Yeah.
And so
Exactly.
we're going to,
Well,
go ahead.
yeah, with the additional training as a Reiki master, and I will also look at the effects of the work that I do, both physical on a physical level and on that energy level. I see the changes that occur in the chakras, and so the chakras often level out and get more balanced. So I know I'm doing well if those things are at the end of the session are all more balanced, and the people just feel amazing. They're out of that stress mode and out of that weird frantic energy into this beautiful parasympathetic healing, rejuvenation, balancing, homeostasis mode. And that's really where the body heals, is in that phase. And I provide that opportunity for the body to recognize and realize, hey, this does exist, because, like, for instance, like PTSD, which is a really big label, if you will, but it has a lot of manifestations. And so oftentimes there's so much stress. There's like 24 hours worth of stress. And to allow the body to have an hour or an hour and a half of de-stressing now starts to allow the body to recognize that de-stressing mode. And so helping it to realize, hey, oh yeah, I remember that. And then hopefully build on that little by little, as an example.
So, another thing that is recent in my world is I was taking yesterday a continuing education course for my physical therapy license, and I'm taking one again today. And I happen to be pretty fascinated by the vestibular nerve, the vestibular system in general. And what I was thinking about was how the cranial nerves possibly are integrated with one another, and how you could use one cranial nerve to stimulate another. So with vestibular therapy, a lot of the training has to do with either incorporating vision, if it's appropriate, or taking away vision, if it's appropriate, and then incorporating kinesthetics or proprioception when that's appropriate as well. And so I was wondering what your thoughts were on that. And there's going to be a second thing that I learned about yesterday that I was not aware of. Apparently there's something, and maybe you know more about it, called autonomic nervous system freezing. And it's almost like somebody goes into, it's like too much stimuli, and they basically freeze. Like their system just shuts down. It's not a seizure. Some people think it almost presents like a seizure because they're frozen. So can you talk about that a little bit more, and maybe enlighten people about those symptoms? Because I think maybe there are a lot of people walking around with them and have no idea why.
Yeah. Well, I see that as a way with tinnitus. It's one of those that has made there's several layers to tinnitus, but one of them that I can affect is the structural portion of that. And people, they hear some sort of sound, and it can be any kinds of sound. Some are more irritating than others, and some can really be so irritating and can drive a person really
Sure.
weird, a hard thing to deal with. But that's sort of where I see that as you were talking about, the cranial nerves being sort of stuck in a loop of function, and you just don't, the body can't, uh, isn't given the opportunity to reset. And with craniosacral, in not just structurally making those changes again to cause an optimal situation for the function of the bones and that they're all balanced, but now also giving the opportunity for the body to say, ah, I don't need to hear that sound for that moment, for that short period of time. And then that gets the body to remember what it's like to be without that sound. And then build, like I said, build upon that. Also, ADHD, I've worked with several children, and they're always looking for something to stimulate. And it's and that is where they live, is in that stimulation. And they're constantly seeking out that. And it's hard for them to settle down to sit and study for school. And luckily, I've been able to treat several of them for over a long period of time. And it's part of that retraining, allowing the body to realize that, oh, you don't need that stimulation all the time. You can do without. And we start with just a half hour, an hour, and then it build on that, and then allow that child to experience it at other times of the day, not necessarily in the therapy session. Experience it, teach the body, teach their recognition of that space, that calm space, and now bring that into the classroom, bring that into while they're studying. And it's a slow process, but it's the part of the awareness and retraining of that system that's just like totally all the time.
Do you think, and this is my feeling, based upon some of the vestibular information that I've been learning, is that the autonomic nervous system, or the cranial nerves, right? Well, first of all, going back to the tinnitus, the vagus nerve, which is important for parasympathetic, that relaxation, that healing energy that you talk about, actually enters the body through right behind the ear. So the proximity anatomically is really interesting to acknowledge, number one. But number two, it almost seems like, at least with vestibular insult or injury, is that things they come to disequilibrium, meaning that there is going to be a cranial nerve. And when I say cranial nerve, guys, these are the nerves that are located within the skull, basically. That's where they originate. And they can be motor and they can be sensory, and some of them can be both, which is really interesting. I want to look back on that again as well.
Right.
So they could either sense, they could either move, or they have qualities of both with regard to that. And so it almost seems like there's a overdoing or a taking over of some of the cranial nerves, which causes this disequilibrium, literally, and then manifests itself into symptoms within the body. And it could be in the eyes, it could be in the ears, it could be where else? What other systems, Hans?
Digestion.
Obviously, yes.
Balance, proprioception. Oh
Breathing.
my God, proprioception.
Yeah.
I just recently had someone, and I can even, because I work on the cranium, moving the bones, somebody's face, when you look at it, wasn't completely lined up, was just slightly off.
Oh,
I obviously have a trained eye for that.
Oh, yeah,
After
for sure.
all was done, the whole face was realigned, but her problem was that she kept on walking into a wall or kicking a stool, or the proprioception, which is sort of the feeling of your position in the world, if you will, in the space around you. she was just kicking the chair or whatever, bumping into things. But afterwards, after this was all lined up, the rest of the body fell in place. I mean,
Right.
it's weird that one thing like that can have such a functional disability, this balance, you know.
Of course. And again, it could be something as trite as, hitting your head when you were a kid. Like, I mean, how many head traumas, if you've had children, how many mini head traumas has your child been through? And then over time, right, it's that energy that's not created nor destroyed that comes in. And if it is not dissipated, right, through some type of modality, then it's going to continue to perpetuate, manifest, and eventually become dysfunctional. And again, I think this is a huge area. Breathing is another area where it can manifest for sure. And I encourage individuals who have not taken a look at this, particularly if they're not getting better with other modalities. So it was very interesting on that class yesterday. It was given by a physical therapist who happens to specialize in vestibular therapy. But this gentleman who was having that autonomic nervous system freezing and basically lost his quality of life, because it can be, when these nerves get messed up, guys, the consequences are oftentimes horrific. And what wound up happening is that he had gone through a 1.5 years of physical therapy that was not working for him. And this is something that I always stress, is that if you're not getting better with the modality that you're using, it is nothing against the person. It is nothing against the modality. It's just not the right fit for you for this particular problem. And therefore, you need to seek other modalities because your answer is out there. And,
I so encourage that too. Absolutely. Sharing. Yeah. And that's part of the reason why we got to know each other, sure, is being able to share our wealth of knowledge. And I can't do what you do, and you can probably do what I do, but
I don't have the patience to do what you do.
Yeah. It's one other thing I wanted to say here is that you were talking about this balance. And I guess I want to just hook in another verbiage that's used to help people understand this. We're talking about the stress response as part of that vagus nerve syndrome, if you will. And so we're looking at going into the parasympathetic nervous stimulation. And that's the stress response. These two systems can't function at the same time. It's an either or. And most people are in that stress response. Our society is so full of being able to provide that very nicely, but we allow the people to experience that parasympathetic, which is the healing side, the nurturing side, the regeneration side, the rebalancing side. And so really that's what this is about.
And it's really quite interesting too, how you get into that, because, the trauma could be body, it could be psychological, right? Stress, and or it could be energetic, right? So again, damage or a lack of circulation to the nerves, basically having a heart attack in the brain. You know what I mean? Or like a coronary artery, right? So we have these arteries that are blocked. The same thing can happen through the craniosacral system of the body. And if you think of it that way, that might be another way that it would tip you off that this might be of benefit to you. And one last question that I have, because you are a Reiki master, how is this different than Reiki?
Well, good one. Good question. Reiki can be done in so many different ways. One is that you don't necessarily have to touch the body, and that's where a lot of people have learned to do that. The beauty, and really you learn to see. You learn to see with your hand. I mean, oftentimes I even close my eyes. I don't necessarily need to, but I close my eyes, and so these become my eyes, and and I can feel that energy already well ahead of me touching the body. But now it's because I'm a massage therapy licensed, I'm allowed to touch the body. And so all of a sudden I make that energetic connection. And it's almost like a spark, if you will. It doesn't feel like a spark, but it's a blending and melting. And so now I really feel like with that, the Reiki work that I've done and really feel like I've perfected, I start blending with the body. So that surface, and it's a weird concept in my how I view this. The cells in my hand blend with their cells in their body. They become one, and I can really feel where the energy shifts are, where it's stuffed up and gunky. Sometimes I call it gunky.
Right.
And I try and work on facilitating that movement. And so
Yeah.
I'm not sure how different it is, but that's how I have perfected that, being able to have, touch the body and integrate, be coherent energy, the cohesive and coherence of the energies blend. And that's why I'm able to go so deep. Yeah.
Right. And again, it's just another tool in your toolbox, because, when you have that skill set, you can alter your treatment appropriate to that particular client.
Right.
And that's why I'm all for these kinds of things. I mean, heck, I think I even have done CranioSacral on a patient or two. So, because because I, again, I kind of felt it appropriate, and I know a little bit about it, and I also trust, I do trust my hands on these kinds of things as well. So it's just a different type of manner of doing so. And again, if you haven't tried it, I would strongly encourage the experience. Again, particularly if you're either stuck or you're not getting better with a current intervention that you have, and of particular instance, something that might be related to the nervous system in general, or if you haven't addressed the nervous system or the energy in your body, this is a great modality. So we're going to have to, I think, talk about body, mind, energy some other time, because that's been a conversation of ours, and I don't want to take too long on this one. But so we'll schedule in another time to talk about the, I call it the trilogy of health and healing, which is that body, mind, energy kind of movement or system.
Yeah.
And I look forward to that. So thank you so much for taking the time to speak. And we have all your contact information below. So get in touch and investigate, learn more. If it seems like the right fit, give it a try. It's it is quite the experience. All right.
Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure.
Bless you and all the wonderful work you do in expanding and offering this to all these beautiful people.
Thank you, Hans.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for joining us today on Step Up with DL Walker. For any information about our guest, it'll be found in the comments box below this video. For more information on how you can recover from injury, restore vitality, and gain resilience from disease and trauma, all in the comfort of your home, click the link on the screen. Until next time, take good care of your body, mind, and spirit. It's the only true home that you really have.